Hello, welcome back. Hopefully everybody's doing well. Hopefully everybody's had a nice week. Depending on when you're watching this, hopefully you have a good weekend or had a good weekend. I'm going to post probably a couple short videos instead of one big video, just for file size sake. Introducing the concepts of hypothesis testing, which is what we would have been doing if we were normally in a regular class on Saturday. But I couldn't be there this Saturday to teach live, so I'm recording this video. A couple things to point out while you're watching these videos and looking at the notes. I am going to post all the whiteboard notes on the website. The whiteboard notes that are already there are very similar to what we're going to be looking at today. So I'm going to leave those up there, but I'll post these new ones as well. And then the video of me annotating and talking and writing as I go will also be posted. And if it's broken up into a couple videos, they'll just be labeled video 1, 2, 3, etc. All right, so if at any point you do have a question about something related to a topic in the video, what I would suggest is just to pause the video, write down your question, make notes of it, and that way when we meet next time, you'll be able to ask me a specific question, and I could refer back to these notes, or I could refer back to an example that we might look at, whatever it is. So if you do have a question, I would definitely recommend writing it down as you go. All right, so this last unit is hypothesis testing. It is the biggest unit of the course. It's kind of the culmination of everything we've talked about. It's the most important unit. It's the most realistic and most lifelike. It's the most useful. A hypothesis test, you've probably heard the terms before, maybe in a science class or just in general. But anytime somebody poses a question or makes a statement, if you don't believe it's true, then you could conduct a hypothesis test to see, is there evidence that suggests that it's not true? You might read an article, you might see a commercial, somebody might just make a statement to you. The most common or most commonly used example of hypothesis test is a court case. In the United States, every single court case is supposed to be under the assumption that the person is innocent. Now, if everybody thought they were innocent, we wouldn't be in a court case. So somebody must think that the person is guilty. At least one person must think this person is guilty. If everybody thought they were innocent, there would be no court case because everybody believes they're innocent. But if somebody believes this person's guilty, whether it's lawyer, neighbor, whoever, somebody thinks that this person's guilty, it goes to court. There's a lawyer, and the lawyer is going to look at evidence or data, and they're going to look at this data that was collected, and they're going to try to use this data to show that it's very likely or very unlikely that the person is innocent based on this data. It doesn't really prove anything. Most court cases are determined without definite proof. Depending on the severity of the crime, depending on the severity of the punishment, the amount of evidence that you would need changes. If the punishment is a $200 ticket, they don't feel as bad if they make a mistake. It stinks for the person that has to pay $200 and maybe they really didn't do anything bad. But in the scheme of things, it's not as big of a concern for them to charge somebody $200 and maybe they didn't really do anything, as opposed to sending somebody to prison for life who didn't really do anything. So the harsher the punishment, theoretically, the more data, more evidence they would need to collect. All right, so we're going to look at the general setup of a hypothesis test. It's broken up into 7 parts, as you can see here. The 7 parts are listed on the side. 5, 6, 7. Some of these are very similar to things that we've already talked about, things that we've already done. We've talked about conditions. We've talked about how to type stuff into StatCrunch. We've talked about writing conclusions. We called them interpretations when we were looking at confidence intervals, but it's very similar. We talked about the type of interval that we would create. We're going to do the same thing, but instead of type of interval, we're going to look at the type of test. We're going to talk about the population, the parameter, meaning who does this data represent? Where is it coming from? What is it that we're actually measuring? Is it a proportion? Is it a mean? Are we looking at 2 proportions or 2 means? What is the parameter of interest? What does it represent? And I'm going to break down each of these 7 topics, and we're going to go one at a time and just show you exactly what it is you would need to do for a hypothesis testing question. And then we'll look at 1 or 2 examples of a hypothesis test question and write out all the different aspects of it. Okay, so you can see here the null hypothesis. The symbol for the null hypothesis is this symbol right here. Looks like H sub O. It's actually read H naught, N-A-U-G-H-T. If you just write H sub 0, H sub O, that's fine. You don't have to know it's called H naught, but that's how you pronounce it. And this is what's being stated, or what's assumed to be true. If I just walked up to you and I said, 80% of people passed the final. Now, you don't have any evidence or proof or anything, but that's my statement. So we're going to assume that that's true. If you didn't believe me, if you believed me, you would just move on and just keep going. If you didn't believe me, you might decide to collect evidence and take a look and see, is there evidence that goes against what I'm saying? Okay.